Alright guys, BLM here, back with a new video. In this video, back with a new casting video. We're going to be doing Survivor Champions versus Challengers. Essentially a tribe with people who have won the game, and another tribe of people who are the best to never win the game. And this is a theme that people have been talking about online for a while now, and I think it's a really interesting theme. Obviously, it's very tough now after Winners at War to come up with a Champions tribe that's not so filled with people from Winners at War. So with my Champions tribe here, I did limit it to 5. Obviously, I didn't want it to be overrun with Winners at War players to the point where they could outnumber them. So I did put 5 players from Winners at War and 5, obviously not from Winners at War. Which, to be honest, is kind of tough if you really think about it, because I feel like Winners at War is most of the winners that production would want back. So again, going for a semi-realistic cast here, it is tougher to see some of these people that weren't brought back for Winners at War ever coming back, though I was still able to find 5 slots there. The best to never win, the challengers, that was definitely a lot easier, obviously, because there's a lot more options there, but the winners field is pretty limited. But I'm going to structure this a little bit differently than how I do my normal casting videos. Normally for my casting videos, I go season by season, and we will still kind of do that later on. But because we have a tribe full of champions, essentially winners of the game, I decided what I'm going to do here for that. So normally with my casting videos, I do end up going through each season one by one and talk about who's the contenders from that season. And I will still kind of be doing that here. However, I'm going to be doing this slightly differently with the Champions tribe, since those are obviously the winners of every single season. What we're going to do there is run through every winner of the show and talk about who I put on the cast. And then after that, we'll go back to the normal format for the challengers. So let's start talking about the winners, the champions. Obviously, we put 10 on a cast out of the, 40 seasons, but 38 people. You get the point. So let's start off with Richard Hatch. Richard Hatch is not playing Survivor again. I think that's pretty clear at this point, with how badly he's ruined his relationship with productions. I don't think he's playing again. Didn't make my cut. However, I did put on Tina. I do think Tina is someone that was at least on their radar. I mean, they called her for Winners at War. I do think that the fact that they didn't put her on is kind of worrying. Like, what was the hesitation there? Was it that she's too old? But it's like, I don't know. I still put her on the cast here, especially because we're in a spot where we need 5 people that weren't on Winners at War. And I feel like out of the people that weren't on Winners at War, I do feel like she's still one of the more likely returnees out of that field. So I did put Tina on the cast. Did not put Ethan. I don't think he's playing again, but I did put on Vesepia. And this one was the tough one. This was the toughest one for me because she was literally the 10th pick on here. And the reason for that is because production has very clearly not liked Vesepia. I mean, they've talked about how boring they feel like she is. She's also someone that wasn't even called for Winners at War. So those are all terrible signs. However, there's a few things that made me pick her. I think, one, she's more active in the Survivor community now, ever since Winners at War, plus also the diversity stuff. I just feel like she's someone that's more in the community. I feel like she's someone that could be more on production's radar now with this push for more diversity on the show. I feel like having someone like Vesepia as obviously the first black female winner, I feel like that's something that very much helps her in terms of a position on a all winners cast or tribe or whatever. So I do feel like Vesepia was someone that I did put on my cast. Brian Heidick's never playing again. We can skip over him. Jenna, I considered, it was either her or Vesepia. I went for Vesepia again for diversity and for her active role in the community now. Jenna is a bit more a question mark. She hasn't really been in the community for a little while. She's obviously had some issues with DUIs and all this other stuff. So I decided to leave her off. Next up, we got Sandra. Sandra's kind of question mark for me, too. She talked about in the past how she always would say yes whenever asked, but then after Winners at War, she was like, I don't want to play again. But then, kind of more recently, she's been, kind of more open to playing again. So, I don't know. I did consider her. I didn't put her on just because, again, I could only have 5 people from Winners at War, and I just feel like there were other options that were more enticing to me. But she was definitely someone that I considered. Didn't really consider Amber. I don't feel like I need to see her play again. Chris Doherty, I would love to see Chris Doherty play again. I just don't think it's happening. He's kind of like the male Vesepia in production's eyes of someone that they didn't particularly like. Haven't called him back ever. But again, I think there's those pros for Vesepia that aren't there for Chris. I feel like Chris is still someone that production isn't really considering to bring back. So he didn't make my cut. I did consider Tom. I just don't feel like Tom's in the greatest shape, right? It is surprising that he wasn't even called for Winners at War. That's kind of mind-blowing, but still, even if he were to get the call. Who knows if he would pass medical? And at the end of the day, again, I just didn't feel like he was necessary for my champions tribe here. Danny, I feel like Danny's probably done. I wouldn't personally mind seeing Danny again. Like, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but it's not something I really need either, so didn't put her on my cast. Aris, I think Aris is done. Yule, I would love to see Yule play again. Yule is someone that it'd be really great. However, I mean, he's talked about himself that he probably won't play unless it's for some sort of charity. And who knows, maybe they can make this season about some sort of charity. But it's like, overall, don't feel like it's super likely that he comes back. And also, based on who I'm already bringing back from Winners at War, it would be kind of tough to put him on the cast. Though there's probably a spot for him we'll talk about later. But I didn't put Yule on, though. If this was like my dream cast, I do think he probably would make the cut. Next up, we got Earl, and I did put Earl on the Champions Tribe here, as Earl is someone that wanted to come back already. I mean, like, he's someone that's been wanting to come back. It's just he's always had things go in the way of that. And if this is a world where this is like the perfect scenario where he finally has time to come back, I mean, he's definitely on the tribe, right? Like, he's definitely coming back. He was a consideration for Winners at War. He was in consideration for Game Changers even. So, I mean, I do feel like Earl is a very likely returnee if his life permits it. And we're under the assumption that it does. So he made my cut. I considered Todd. I just don't feel like Todd is someone that production wants to bring back. Again, he's kind of like Chris, where I would love to see him back. I just don't feel like production wants to see him back. So because of that, he didn't make my cut. I also did consider Parvati. I just feel like Parvati's done. I mean, unless it's another like really massive season, maybe she comes back. But I feel like outside of that, I don't see Parvati playing Survivor again. Got Bob. Come on, Bob's not playing again. We got JT. I mean, I don't know how JT is with production anymore. I mean, supposedly he wasn't great on the Game Changers pre-jury trip. But again, that was just rumors. But I mean, overall, I don't feel like production's too incentivized to bring JT back. And there's another option that kind of fits his archetype that I would rather see back anyway. So JT didn't make my cut. Natalie White. Come on. Fabio. I mean, I think it'd be funny to see a Fabio return. I don't feel like it's happening. Again, considering he wasn't even consideration for Winners at War, I mean, what other season are they really going to consider him for then? Like, I just don't feel like Fabio is super likely. We got Boston Rob. I don't think Boston Rob's playing again unless it's another big season. Again, kind of like Parvati, I think they're in the exact same boat where I just don't see any incentive for them to play again unless it's a massive anniversary. Now we got Sophie, and I did put Sophie on my cast. I think Sophie is a more likely returnee, especially on something that's all winners. I think Sophie obviously came off of Winners at War looking really great. I mean, she's not someone that seems super incentivized to play again, though someone that hasn't completely ruled it out. So for me, I did decide to put her on. I did consider Kim, and if I were to put like 6 people from Winners at War, I think Kim would probably be that 6th choice. However, again, I can't put too many on there. And I think Kim and Sophie are kind of fighting for a similar spot on this cast. I went with Sophie as I feel like what she displayed on Winners at War was more enticing on a return. Though, again, either one wouldn't be bad. Denise, I didn't really consider. I'm done with Denise. I don't need to see her play again. Cochran's not playing again. Come on. Tyson, I did put Tyson on the cast. I think Tyson is one of these people that will always say yes every time he's asked. And I think he's someone I would like to see play again. I mean, it's really tough with Tyson considering I do think he is a good player, but just I feel like his results haven't really demonstrated that. So I would like to see him play again, just kind of see how he would do there. Next up, we got Tony, and I don't know. I mean, I think if Tony were to come back, this is probably one of the better spots for him to be on a tribe with a whole bunch of other people from Winners at War and alongside winners and stuff. But it's like, I think I'm good. To be honest, I'll be happy if Tony never plays again. I mean, obviously, if he does play again, then cool. But it's like, I don't need it. And because of that, I don't feel like he needed to be on this cast, especially when we had so many other options. Now for Natalie Anderson. I did put Natalie Anderson on my cast. Again, I think coming out of Winners at War, I mean, despite the fact that he was on the edge and returned and supposedly played terribly on the edge, I do feel like there's still more to her story. I do feel like there is more to see on a return from her. So for me, she made my cut. Next up, we got Mike Holloway, and I put Mike Holloway on my cast. I think Mike Holloway is still to this day the biggest snub from Winners at War. I mean, obviously considering Richard Hatch is someone that was probably never coming back in that situation, I do think Mike is someone that I would have loved to see on the Winners at War cast. I think he's always going to be a really fun, dynamic character and player, someone that's really moving the game forward. And for a Champions tribe here, I feel like that's kind of a perfect fit for him. He made my cut. I consider Jeremy. I think Jeremy's done, though. Again, I think outside of, again, like kind of like the Basarab, the Parvati situation, where outside of a massive anniversary season, I don't see Jeremy coming back. Next up, we got Michelle, and I think Michelle's a lock, right? I think out of Winners at War, I think Michelle's the biggest lock to return later on, and I think this is a perfect fit for her on this Champions tribe, so why not? I did also put on Adam, and this is the one that I was talking about earlier, where I feel like if Yule wants to play again, I think he can take Adam's spot. But without Yule, I feel like Adam makes the cut. Again, he was a really, really fun character on Winners at War. I think he's someone that's always going to be playing the game really hard. I think he's someone that always says yes. I just don't feel like there's any reason to not put him on the cast here. Now we have kind of a string of people that I didn't put on, so let's just rush through them. We got Sarah Lucina. I think she's done. I don't want to see Sarah Lucina again. Not because I don't like Sarah Lucina, but because I feel like her story is like perfectly concluded after Winners at War, so I don't need her again. Ben, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Ben play again, but I don't feel like it's necessary, and with all these other winners already, and like again, I think Mike's kind of in a similar archetype. I would much rather see Mike play again. Ben didn't make the cut. Wendell was close too. I mean, again, it's tough when you're narrowing down Winners at War to 5 people. It's like, I don't know how you fit Wendell in there, so didn't put him on. Considered Nick. He wasn't really that close though. Again, Wendell would have been probably the better option over Nick, so he didn't make the cut. But I need one more spot. I need one more spot for a non-Winners at War winner. And it came down to obviously Chris Underwood and Tommy Sheehan. And which one would I rather see play again? Again, as much as I talk about Tommy as one of the best players ever, I think he played a masterful game in Island of the Idols. I don't need to see Tommy play again. I think Chris Underwood has a fascinating arc on a return. It's not even just for Champions versus Challengers season, just any season. I would love to see Chris Underwood play again. I think it would be fascinating to see how he plays on a returning season after coming out of a win that a lot of people felt like was undeserved, coming out of a win that he only played like a third of the season. I do think it would be really interesting to see him play again. So I put Chris Underwood on my cast. Now let's move on to the challengers, the people who are essentially the best to never win. So let's run through, starting off Survivor Borneo. I didn't put anyone from Borneo. There's no one even in consideration. Moving to Australian Outback, I considered Colby. However, I feel like obviously this is going to be one tribe, so I mean that does change up the dynamics in some bit. And I did consider having both Colby and Jerry. However, I feel like that's too much for one tribe. I feel like to have those two who have such an interconnected history of the show, have them on one tribe on an all-star season, I feel like that's a bit too much. And I think mixing that in with the fact that I don't feel like Colby can be on an all-star season without Jerry. I feel like it just feels weird. I decided to just scrap both of them. From Africa, I did consider Lex. I didn't put him on though. Again, just the field's too tough. Again, this is actually a really tough field, especially if we're going for people who are realistic, people who production would bring back. Because I mean, like, I think Lex is probably someone I would rather see back than some of the people that did end up actually making the cut. But going for a semi-realistic cast, I feel like that makes it so much harder, and because that Lex didn't make it. And the same thing goes for Kathy Babcock O'Brien, someone that I would be fascinated to see how she adapts to the modern game. But again, just simply doesn't make the cut. I feel like there's people in her archetype already on the cast that we'll talk about. No one from Thailand made the cut. From the Amazon, I did consider Rob's sister Nino. I just don't feel like he was someone that was a lock to return, and by him not being a lock, I feel like it's just easier to put in these other people that are locks, and there's enough to fill out the entire cast, so didn't put up Rob either. No one in Pearl Islands was really in consideration, considering Johnny Fairplay's never coming back. Vanuatu, I kind of considered Twyla, but I mean, at the end of the day, again, she didn't make the cut. Didn't consider anyone from Palau, didn't consider anyone from Guatemala. I had a decent amount of contenders here from Panama. We had Danielle De Lorenzo, which I think would have been funny, but again, like as a best and ever win, I just feel like that's a massive stretch for her, so didn't put her on. I also considered Terry. I think Terry would be interesting to see play again, but didn't make the cut. But I mean, obviously the one that made the cut. I mean, you have to have Suri. How do you not have Suri on a season like this? Having a tribe of the best and never win, it's like, I mean, Suri is a lock. Like, you can't do it without Suri, so she made the cut. From Cook Islands, I did consider both Ozzy and I considered Penner. However, neither of them made the cut. For Ozzy, it's more so because there's already a lot of people that he has connections to that are on this cast already. And I mean, to be fair, I mean, some of those connections would be funny to see, but it's like, it's mixing that with the fact that I don't need to see Ozzy play again. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing him again, but to actively want to see him again, it's like, that's not really something that I need. So Ozzy didn't make the cut, and Penner was tougher. I think there's one spot here that we'll talk about that I think you could swap Penner out for, but considering all the stuff he has going on at home, I just feel like he's a less likely option than someone we'll be talking about later. Didn't consider anyone from Fiji, but from China, I did consider and also put on Amanda. And again, I just feel like Amanda is someone that obviously fits into like the best to never win sort of element of having gone to the end twice and almost won kind of both of the times. And even on Here's Vs. Villain, she plays a pretty decent game there. So I mean, I do think she's definitely one of the best players to never win. And also adding in that I do think she is more willing to play again now than what she was after Heroes vs. Villains. And also I feel like she has an interesting arc now where she's in a completely different space in her life than what she was when she played Survivor. So of all that considered, I did think Amanda was someone I would like to see play again. I didn't consider anyone from Micronesia or Gabon. But from Tocantins, there were two people I considered. I did consider Stephen Fishback. However, I just don't feel like Stephen Fishback wants to play Survivor again. So he didn't make the cut. But the person I did put on here is Coach. Coach talked about being open to playing again. And while, like, as a player, he's kind of a mixed bag. Obviously, he had two kind of games and then one really strong game in South Pacific. I do think having him on the same cast as like Sophie and Tyson would be pretty funny. And yeah, I feel like he's a more likely option to return at this point than Penner, so that's why I made the cut. Obviously from Samoa, I gotta consider Russell. I just don't feel like production wants Russell again. Like, I think Russell's ruined his relationship with production through obviously the spoiler stuff and also just talking bad about production and mixing that in with obviously the Brandon Hance stuff and the Willie Hance stuff. It's like, I don't think the Hances are particularly well liked at CBS. So all in all, while Russell would be a perfect fit for this cast and it would be fascinating to see him play again with this high caliber of players, I just don't feel like it's super likely. But there's a couple people actually that you could probably swap him out for if they were willing to bring him back. But again, I didn't put him on my cast. I didn't really consider anyone from Nicaragua. From Redemption Island, I mean, I guess you can consider Andrea, but for me, didn't really make the cut. I feel like there were better options. I considered no one from South Pacific. From One World, I considered Sabrina, but she didn't make the cut. And now we're moving on to Survivor Philippines, where I did end up putting on Malcolm. I mean, again, Malcolm is someone I would love to see play Survivor again. He obviously has that devastating vote out in Game Changers, and I feel like to have him come back and have a redemption arc from that would be pretty interesting. So Malcolm easily made my cut. I didn't consider anyone from Survivor Karamoan. From Survivor Blood vs. Water, I did consider both Sierra Easton and Brad Culpepper. However, neither of them made the cut. As for me, there's just better options. I mean, Sierra, I think you could squeeze her in if you really wanted to, but I just don't know how likely it is that she would want to play again. But she was definitely in consideration. From Cagayan, I didn't really consider anyone just because there's no one that wants to come back from that season anymore that would fit this category. I mean, like, Cass would be funny, but she doesn't want to play again. Spencer doesn't want to play again. I guess you can consider Tasha, but not really, right? So there was no one really there. From San Juan del Sur, I did consider Kelly Wentworth. However, I just don't feel like Kelly Wentworth wants to play again. I think it's pretty clear at this point that she talks about it as if she's done with Survivor. And while this theme might be something that draws her out to want to play again, I just don't feel like it's super, super likely. From Worlds Apart, I did put on Carolyn. I mean, is Carolyn one of the best to never win? I don't know, but I think there's a couple things here. First, you got her dynamic with Mike on the other tribe. I think that's interesting. I also feel like she's someone that production wants back again. I mean, Jeff Probst has said that Carolyn on the next All-Star season will be bringing you back, which, I mean, who knows if that's actually true, considering that was back in Game Changers, and it's been years since then, but I do think Carolyn's definitely on their radar, so I did end up putting her on the cast. From Survivor Co. Wrong, I did consider, obviously, Aubrey, I considered Sydney, and I considered Ty. Aubrey, I just feel like she's done with Survivor for a while. I don't really see why she would be back anytime soon, considering her Edge of Extinction run. Sydney, I mean, has talked about how as long as she's doing her bodybuilding stuff, she's not going to be back. So that's not super likely. And then we got Ty. And I did put Ty on the cast. Again, is he one of the best to never win? I don't know. I mean, he got third one time, fourth the next time. That is pretty impressive. But he's also just a likable figure. I think he's someone that production likes and also the general audience likes. So I decided to put him on. For Millennials for Gen X, the only person I really consider was David, though I don't feel like David's super likely right now, obviously because he's working on Star Trek and all that stuff, so didn't put him on. From HHH, I did consider a few people here. I considered Ryan, I considered Devin, and I considered Chrissy. Did not put Ryan on as I just don't feel like he's a super high priority for production. Devin would have been really fun, though. I mean, Devin seems to be fine. From what I gather, it doesn't seem like Devin's super incentivized to come back. So that leaves Chrissy, and I think Chrissy's a very likely returnee on a season like this. I mean, I don't know exactly how likely of a returnee she is in the grand scheme of things, considering we haven't really had a actual All-Star season since her season, so there's not really much to gauge off of how much interest there is in seeing her play again, but I think for a best to never win, if you're trying to get like more modern players, I do feel like Chrissy kind of fits that mold. From it, Ghost Island, I mean, the only one you could really consider there is Dominic, right? And he did make my cut. I did put Dominic on. I think clearly one of the best to never win. I think it would be a travesty if they do a theme like this and Dominic isn't on there. So he made my cut. Didn't consider anyone from David versus Goliath as, I mean, like you can consider like a Davey or a Christian or I guess a Mike White, but I just don't feel like any of those really fit the theme super, super well. And then we move on to Edge of Extinction, where there was one very clear person to consider there, and that is Rick Devens. Now, I mean, say what you will about Rick Devens, because like even I don't think he played a particularly good game, but a lot of the general public does. Production very clearly loves him. I think he's a shoo-in returnee, so I mean, I do think he makes the cut here. And finally, from Island of the Idols, I did consider two people. I considered Dean, who didn't make the cut, but I did also consider Lauren, who did make the cut. Now again, like, would you really consider Lauren as one of the best players of all time or anything? Probably not, but I do think she's a very strong player. I think she played a very strong game. I do think she's someone that I would love to see play again. I think production very clearly likes her, so she made my cut. So there we go. That is my cast for Survivor Champions versus Challengers. On the Champions tribe, we have Tina Wesson, we have Vesepia Towery, we have Earl Cole, we have Tyson Apostle, we have Sophie Clark, we have Natalie Anderson, we have Mike Holloway, we have Michelle Fitzgerald, we have Adam Klein, and we have Chris Underwood. On the Challengers tribe, we have Sari Fields, we have Amanda Kimmel, we have Coach Wade, we have Malcolm Freeberg, we have Kaylin Rivera, we have Ty Trang, we have Chrissy Hoffbeck, we have Dominic Abate, we have Rick Devens, and we have Lauren Ashley Beck. So yeah, that's my casting video for Survivor Champions versus Challengers. To be honest, I'm kind of running out of casting video ideas. I mean, I do have some that I've jotted down, but it's like they're not really high priority ones though, so don't be too surprised if there's not another casting video for a little while. And even if there is one, it's probably going to be a lower scaled idea than something like this, but what are you going to do? But yep, that is the video. Thank you for watching.